Please be careful when you tap these little holes with a small tap, because if you break a tap off later on in the project or a drill, you will become very discouraged. So if you're having a little trouble tapping, determine, do you have a dull tap or is the hole the right size? And what you might want to do is open these holes up, since these are number drill sizes anyway, open them up to the next size where there is you're removing less material and less chance of breaking the tap, and yet that tapped hole will still be plenty strong, because with this size drill bit that I drilled, I'm getting a 75% deep thread. Well, we don't need a 75% deep. It probably would be all right with 50% deep. Less chance of breaking it. So notice how gingerly I do this, just using the tips of my fingers. Has old TUBALCAIN ever broken off a tap? That's why I'm talking about it so much right now. But I'll tell you, I don't break as many as I used to. The holes are tapped. It looks something like that. Matter of fact, it looks exactly like that. Now you can get one of these screw checkers. Different companies sell them. This is Brownell's Gunsmith Tools. On my road trip to Montana, Wyoming in November, right along the highway there, I think it must have been Route 80, Brownell's was building a big distribution center or something there right on the highway, but I don't think it was open yet. Now, the next thing I have to decide is I'm going to remove all of this material here. Should I bandsaw it out, most of it out, and then mill it, or should old TUBALCAIN just use a roughing mill and rough the heck out of it? The trouble is, it makes such a mess when you're reducing all of that material to chips. So if my bandsaw blade isn't too bad, I think I'll at least start to bandsaw this side out and see what happens. But it'll still have to be milled. Well, I guess the bandsaw is my chosen weapon, but I've got the speed turned way up, but it's not a skip tooth blade, it's just a regular 18 pitch blade, and it's banging away because I'm missing some teeth, just like my own mouth. But and the work is already hotter than a pistol. But I'm committed to this, so that's what I'm going to do. And there it is. I suppose that's a lot better than turning all of this into tiny chips. So now it's ready to put into the mill and mill it down to the lines. All set up in the mill, up on a parallel. Do make sure that your cutter is held securely in the collet so it cannot get pulled down by the helix and ruin the work. The quill is locked. And always lock the table in the direction that you're not moving. So now I'm just going to hog some of this metal out, and then I'll take a final pass down to the line. sew on until I get through the lines. And that's it for that side. I'll clean the vise off and flip it over and do the other side. I flipped the work over and I'm on the opposite side now. Now, I took the time to remove all the burrs from it. You do not want to try to clamp on burrs or any chips that may be in the vise. So clean up everything each time you have a new setup, and I used a different parallel to get this up far enough away to the vise, from the vise where I'm not going to damage the vise or the cutter. But make sure that your work is held properly and cannot fly out, or it's going to scare the heck out of you and maybe hurt you as well. And wear your safety glasses. Etc., etc. Through the magic of television, I'm taking my last pass. Now before I take it out, I'm going to go ahead and mill off this down to the line. Remember when I laid out that line? Approach that dimension. I'm just raising the table until my cutter comes on the line. Quite a sharp cutter, getting a nice finish. I'm back at the milling machine now, but I've got a visitor. Let's see who it is. Ah, it's Sir Henry. The last time you saw little Henry was in the Kennedy toolbox, you remember that? And now, what do we got, 4 months old? Grandma's holding him. Hi buddy, welcome to the machine shop. How you doing today? Boy, he looks warm in that little snuggie, doesn't he? Alright, just want you to get used to the machine shop so you can spend a good part of your life down here with Grandpa, okay? Alright, bye-bye. Next thing I'm going to do is to mill these sides off, and I've got that laid out. Simple milling job, it'll just go back in like that, get milled out. And this is 500 thousandths thick here. I'm not sure I mentioned that before. And here I go with the last pass. When I'm milling into a corner like this, I like to make sure I'm taking just a little bit off the side and a little bit off the bottom and climb milling for that side on my last pass, and it seems to improve the finish greatly. So I'm done with that. Take it out and deburr it. Let's have a look at it now. Starting to shape up. Got the deburring to do, of course. Notice how I changed the hole pattern. So we got the steam port to drill, we got mounting holes to drill, the main crankshaft hole to drill. Coming along nicely. Alright, that's it for day one. I'm heading for the barn. I smell pizza cooking upstairs. Good morning, it's a new day. I'm quite fired up, anxious, and ready to go. It's the third day. I will soon lose track of what the days are. And you know, when you're retired, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is anymore so much until you have your doctor appointments. Okay, I told you I wasn't satisfied with the surface finish here, the reamed surface finish in the bore of the engine. So in fact, I have already lapped it, but I'm going to go back and tell you how I did that and why and so on. But I have a whole box here of hones. Actually, these are cylinder hones, and these are brake hones, but even the smallest one will not fit into that half-inch bore. And I use these mainly on my Stirling engines, because Stirling engines really need a good fit, better than what you need on these little model steam engines. But all of these different sizes here aren't going to work. And then I do have a selection of these too, and I forgot what they are called, but the little dingleberries on there are abrasive balls. And you know, you can get huge ones too for car cylinders, but these are too big to use. So, setting all that aside, let me get out my laps. Now, as you know, lapping is a process that can be done on flat surfaces or cylinders, or both internal and external rounds, and I'm applying this specifically toward a bore or a hole. And these are laps, and most of these I've never used. They came from an auction, but there's a couple here that I actually bought some time ago. This one I specifically bought. Some of these are worn out. I need to go through them and throw them away, and I'm trying to look at the brand name here, because there's one brand, it's oh, I need my optivisor here. Acro, you can look that up. Now, a lap consists of this adjustable type arbor or mandrel, and then the brass piece on here, which is consumable, is called the barrel, and it expands by tightening this. And these will cut within a certain range, not you know, from ½ inch to 1 inch or anything like that, but you know, maybe a 1/16 of an inch or so. So this is the one I've been using. It's also that same brand that I just mentioned. Now, in conjunction with these, now the brass is a soft material, and the lapping compound is supposed to get embedded in that, and the lap should be softer than the material that you're lapping. Well, it's questionable now whether this brass is softer than the aluminum, because I really do not want the lapping compound to get embedded in this bore, and I suppose some of it might, but I'm going to wash it out thoroughly with a thinner. So let's talk a little bit about the lapping compounds now. And I am not an expert at this by any means. I'm somewhat of a novice at lapping, and I haven't done a lot of it. You can buy lapping compound from any supplier, machine shop supplier. You can buy it in automotive stores and so on, and it's often used in lapping valves, and probably a lot of you guys have lapped valves in internal combustion engines. But so I got out my little box of lapping compound, and often the lapping compound is sold this way in a double-ended can with a coarse on one side and a fine on the other. So I thought, and this is 3M brand, so I thought, oh, this is great. This is the coarse side. I was assuming this was the fine side, but I can't read it anymore. So old TUBALCAIN opens that up, and it's just as dry and hard as a rock in there. And I didn't even open up the other side. So then I'm thinking, well, how the heck old is this stuff? It probably came from an auction. And so looking at the 3M label here on the readable side, you will see that this is before zip codes. St. Paul, what's the number on there? 6, Minnesota. So that was made by 1959 or before 1959. So the sound you will now hear is this hitting the garbage can. All right, Plan B. This BALCAIN valve grinding compound. It doesn't tell what coarseness. That would have come from Napa. So TUBALCAIN opens this, and it's dry. Now I think that can be reactivated. Some of this is water-based and some is oil-based, and I don't know what this is offhand. It looks kind of coarse, but it needs to be. It has some moisture in it, so I don't know whether that's oil or water. Also, you can buy lapping compound in a powder form or granular form and mix it with oil or water. Now that would have to come from an industrial supplier. Am I telling you more than you want to know here? I suppose. They still make this Clover brand. Silicon carbide compound. It's, what does it say here? The fluid abrasive of 1,001 uses. Well, I only want it for one use. So I opened it up, and it says A on the top. And yes, it's quite oily and good. So what does the A mean? I wanted to know how coarse it was. So there's a legend on the side here. So you can see that an A is 280 grit. You know, why didn't it say that right here? Well, I suppose they can make just one label then, and then use different lids that get embossed as they can the stuff. So this is what I did use and will continue to use. It says A right here too, so that the clerk, but that looks like it was handwritten or rubber stamp. So that's lapping compound. It's just a fine grit of silicon carbide, and I think there are probably other aluminum oxide and so on. Now let's set this lap up. I put some Bounty towels down here just in case I drip any lapping compound, and should this get caught in the spindle, it wouldn't be dangerous like a rag. It may still not be a good practice, but that's what I got to do. The lap is in the chuck. I'm running it at about 300 RPM. I have pre-adjusted this, so I just have a little bit of a drag. Remember, the lapping compound is going to take up a little bit of space. Now I'm going to put some compound on, just dab it on with my finger. You don't need much. Like so. Now make sure that this is loose enough so it doesn't grab your work and spin it around and hurt you. So you can see what I'm doing, back and forth. Don't stand still with it. Now I'm going to stop, since this is oil base, and put just a little bit of Earl on it. And tighten this up just a little bit. How much? I don't know. So this is the process of lapping a bore. Now we got to clean it out in order to see it, because it's kind of gooey and messy in there. This isn't going to show up very well at all, but I've used Bounty towels and brake cleaner to clean this out, and then that kind of took off some of my bluing, my layout dye, which I didn't mean to do. But the finish is frosty. It's not shiny, almost like you sandblasted it. But I think it's going to be just fine, and if I do not have a good fit with my piston later on, I will go back and redo that and make the piston to fit. Now I put just a little bit of oil in there, and this is a dowel, half-inch dowel. And I've got a nice fit with the dowel. Make sure it gets oiled up real well. Did you hear that Model T go by? So I've got a nice fit here. With the dowel pin. So now on to making the head. That's enough about lapping. But I spent more time on this than what appears on the video. Back to lapping real quickly here. On gauge blocks, Joe blocks, Weber blocks, Steric blocks, whatever you want to call them, these surfaces were lapped, usually using diamond dust, and that is what gets them down to a couple millionths of an inch and gives that perfect finish that can be wrung, so they can be wrung together. So lapping is used. It's a slow, expensive process. Well, I changed my mind here. I'm going to come back and do the head in a minute, but I've already ruined a bit of my layout work here on the bottom, and I had that marked. This is back to the living blueprint here, so I'm making two mounting holes and on a center line, and you can see here this side is a 1/4 inch in from the end, and this hole here, which is already center punched, is 3/8 in from the end. Now these are going to be drilled for 832 screws, so I will drill them number 29 so I can tap them 832, and the clearance hole in the base will be 11/64. And I will be using these flathead cap screws, but use whatever you want or whatever you've got, but a number 8 seems to be fairly well in proportion. Don't use some big fat 5/16 screws because it'll look ugly. I'm not going to show you how I drill these, or I'm not going to show the drilling of them, I should say. But here's a way I like to hold things in a vise, things that are kind of tall like this. With the vise on its side, that gets the work down a little lower, so I don't have to drop the table so terribly far. And even with this small number 29 drill, I like to go in with the 16th bit and spot them, so they do not, the drill bit does not skate around. And it's already been center punched. I've shown this many times in many videos, but this is my complete set of smaller taps. And for instance here, for number 540, there's the tap drill size for 540, there's the tap itself, and there's the clearance for the 540, which is 1/8 inch. And I go all the way from number 3s, which I don't use very often, up to 5/16 in this set here, along with some of my smaller tap wrenches, and it's just handy as heck to have that all ready to go. Speeds things up, makes the job more pleasureful. And I'll tap these two holes nice and straight, and that's a plug tap, 832 plug tap. You know, I want to say hi to all you guys from Australia and the UK. I have an awful lot of viewers from over that way, and quite a few Canadians as well. How are you doing?